Hello, everyone. My name is Tim McKee. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with Selling Construction, and I'm moderating a panel discussion this morning entitled, "Where's My Office?" And for those of us that have been around for quite a while, like myself, we've certainly seen the notion of an office evolve over time. And now with COVID, it's likely we will see further evolution in what we consider to be an office, with work from home, whether it's hybrid work, social distancing, physical barriers, etc. So if that is a topic that's of interest to you, you're in the right place. We have three panelists today, all sort of experts in their field that will lend their perspectives around this topic. And I'd like to let each panelist introduce themselves, starting with Bill Pollard.
Thanks, Tim. I'm Bill Pollard. I'm the co-founder and managing principal at Talon Private Capital. We are a real estate investment and development company in the Pacific Northwest and Texas. Long story, won't bore you with it. But we own about 3 million square feet of office space in those marketplaces. So we're excited to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. And next up, we have Cody Morrison.
Thanks, Tim. I'm Cody Morrison at WeWork. I'm the portfolio director for the Pacific Northwest. So all the buildings up here, well north of 1 million square feet up here in the Pacific Northwest, 750 plus locations globally. And I ostensibly run the sales, leasing, and marketing and acquisition for the assets up here in the Northwest. Been here for about coming up on 3 years next spring, and it's been a really fun ride so far. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. And Beth Halverson.
Good morning, Tim. Thanks for having me as well. I'm Beth Halverson. I'm the Executive Managing Director for Colliers here in the region. We've got an office in Seattle and in Bellevue. We have brokerage operations for office, industrial, retail, multifamily, land development, all sales, investment sales, leasing, and we also have a valuations and advisory team, a debt and structured finance team, and a property management team. So that's what we do.
Welcome, Beth.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we have a series of questions that we will pose to each other here. And I would invite the audience to pop questions into the chat if anything pops up as we go. And I will do my best to get through all the questions. It's a packed session, so lots of good information here. We'll start off with really with many businesses keeping the flexibility for remote work. How does that impact current and future office construction? And I might start with Cody on that one.
Well, I think it's probably a common theme that we're all feeling, that we're experiencing significant delays in the construction cycle and in supply chain. So that affects all of us broadly. And because of that, we've seen a lot of inbound, what we call swing space, temporary space requirements, while somebody completes a long-term TI for maybe a direct space or a sublease or something like that. We've landed a lot of those deals in our pipeline, and it's our job to get sticky with those and try to keep those in the house. But that's really why we exist, for that kind of hyper flexibility. So while that's a challenging market condition, it's actually helped us. So it's been interesting to see, and we've also really seen an uptick for our digital products, or all access and on-demand products as part of that. It's pay for use or monthly subscription type products. We've seen those products really get utilized more frequently as part of that construction cycle.
Great. Yeah, I would add, from our perspective as a contractor, we're seeing through the designs and so on, a lot of our clients are still evaluating and trying to understand, what does it mean? What does hybrid work really mean? The common thinking seems to be that most people will return to the office most of the time. But the work environment is likely to be geared around more hybrid arrangements, a lot of smaller touchdown spaces, that type of thing, small conference rooms. So, but there's a lot of wait and see as well. So, our second question really is, how is the rising cost of construction impacting development here in Bellevue? And are developers having to scrap their previous pro formas or make significant changes to their building designs? And lastly, how has the labor shortage impacted these costs? And I'll pose that to you, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I think the answer is, first of all, no one cares about your pro forma at the end of the day. I mean, the tenant certainly doesn't care about your pro forma, and the market doesn't really care about your pro forma. So your pro forma is a spreadsheet that you had internally that, yes, you have scrapped it and you have basically, but probably more importantly, is that the costs are significant. There's no question about it, but there's actually more. There's just higher priority topics in the market and the tenants' minds. Obviously, as Cody was alluding to, the return from work or the remote work environment and what that's going to do in terms of how the office is going to be designed and function. Obviously, ESG is a big deal. Environmental, social, and governance. Sustainability is a much bigger deal than ever before. And even DEI is a much bigger deal in terms of the buildings themselves, as you alluded to, and the accessibility for all, et cetera. So, to be candid, we have seen less. We haven't had to cut scope. We haven't. Matter of fact, we probably have increased scope because of those other issues. And tenants, both tenants, equity and debt, all seem to be in sync on this, that there's a future office environment that is much more holistic, much more inclusive, and the price to pay for it is the price to pay for it. And most tenants are willing to and acknowledge the need to pay that price in order to get the environment that is appropriate. So,
thank you, Bill. Yeah, it's a good perspective on the DEI and inclusivity as well. It's a very important aspect these days. Moving on, let's see, has office layout changed as a result of the pandemic, and are tenants looking for different types of spaces as they plan for a hybrid workforce? And then we'll go back to you on that one, Cody.
Thanks, Tim. Well, I'd say that the pandemic has accelerated what was already happening in the changes in workplace prior to the pandemic. It's just really put it off on kind of an exponential curve upwards, and we were seeing the workplace becoming more flexible prior to the pandemic. Now we're seeing this accelerate, and we're seeing more companies distribute their workforce across a region or even across the country, rather than have just a couple hubs. Now you're seeing tons of hubs and spokes across the company, especially for the really big occupiers. They're going into more kind of suburban or tertiary markets, opening there. They're also leveraging us and our competitors broadly to distribute their workforce across a region to get their employee base closer to home, to get them out of the cars and improve the quality of lives.
Interesting. There's a follow-on to that here. It's kind of interesting to me anyway. The stereotypical tech office on TV has free food, video games, and ping pong. Are these things more Hollywood than reality? What are you seeing there, Cody?
I'd say it really varies company by company, but I think that the commonality that you see across those examples that you just listed is those things all bring us together. And I think it's up to us employers and operators of commercial real estate spaces to add the amenities, to add the things that bring us together. Now, whether that's ping pong or food and beverage or what, for us, it feels like collaboration hubs. For us, it feels like more flexible work environments with up-leveled amenities, not necessarily kind of the entertainment side of things, but more the professional services and up-leveled furniture and technology is how we accomplish that, along with just making a really holistic, and to Bill's point earlier, inclusive space that provides equal access to everybody for an up-leveled workspace.
Tim, if I could pop in there for a second, Cody brings up a good point. I mean, obviously an incredibly tragic environment during COVID, but one of the necessary benefits that came out of that was every landlord became very close to our tenants. Every landlord dove in and really formed partnerships in moments of crisis with our tenants to try to be there for each other, so to speak. And it was an important give and take that went on during that time. now, when most corporate leadership, as you alluded to at the beginning, desires to have majority of their workforce back into an office environment when that's possible, they're really looking to the owners to create environments that in fact help lure those people out of their homes and back into the office, which puts a tremendous burden on tenants, corporate tenants, and their landlords to invest appropriately and make sure that that environment is, matter of fact, is better than anything an employee could have at home. And so it's not a threat. It's not a coercion. It's simply, and Beth can talk to this, but it's simply really just, we have taken the level of a work environment up so much higher than it's ever been before. And hopefully that all translates into corporate productivity and profitability at some point. So.
Yeah, I agree, Bill. The trend towards really the aesthetic warmth, coziness. People are looking for a place that feels as good as your home office environment or whatever it is that you've been working in, but just definitely much more. I was meeting with Jim Burgess. I'll give him a shout out because he's just recently publishing a piece on sort of the aesthetic environment that he's seeing and the trends that they're starting to design. And it does feel like, it doesn't have to necessarily be ping pong tables and pool tables and the game factor. What he's seeing more of, and I would agree with this, and what we're doing is space utilization that needs to be warm and inviting and comfortable and make you feel like you're just really comfortably engaging with your peers and your colleagues and your clients, as opposed to it needing to be sort of amped up and fun factored. It's really just more like getting back to some really core connection, which is just a different kind of aesthetic than it was, but it's still collaborative.
Yeah, you think about it, and no two houses. You go into three different friends' homes, and they're never the same inside. And yet, for many years, we all designed office interiors to fundamentally be the same. And I think that's the revelation that's gone off, is that if you have 100 different workers, you have 100 different tastes, and you design to that, almost that individual level, because you can't assume that every worker from every walk of life is going to want the same environment.
And attracting the employees is what we're all wanting to do. I mean, that is the common theme right now, is we do acknowledge that we want to be back together. And how do we get those employees to want to be together and to want to come into the workplace? And, the trend used to be either downsizing the size of the workplace or increasing the size of the workplace or private officing it or not. What we're starting to see more is a lot of flexibility in one office environment and trying to sort of do something in a lot of different settings that appeals to everybody. So you won't have a one size fits all. You really have to figure out a way to create some culture inside of a lot of different pockets. That could actually trend towards more space than less.
One of the things that has been really exciting in our neck of the woods in the flexible real estate sector is to get a little bit smarter after every deal that we do, after every TI that we do, after every tenant basis of design that we bring in house. It helps inform our product. And so you've seen our spaces evolve. If you go into a first generation WeWork, it feels a lot different than what's been delivered, in the past year. And that's going to continue to evolve. And so our places are really intentional in fostering collaboration and innovation. And I think that innovation piece is really crucial, because broadly, we've been pretty productive during the pandemic, but I think that, hearing from our members and other tenants in the market, collaboration and innovation have been one of the things that have been struggling.
We do have a question from the audience. Maybe I'll direct this to you, Bill. What's your forecast for lease rate growth on the east side?
Well, I mean, lease rates are going to go up. They're going to go up significantly, and it's good for a couple of reasons, some of which we've touched on here. Obviously, cost. So, and that's not just construction costs, that's also land values are up. And so costs are up. So as a result, that will impact rents, no question about it. Then you have the second issue of the reinvestment of capital that's going to occur into all buildings to ensure that they meet everything we just discussed here. So that capital is going to require a return, and therefore that's going to push up rents. But probably the biggest impact, and one of maybe that doesn't get as much airtime, is kind of the haves and the have-nots, because in reality, we've seen this over, as old as I am, I've seen this multiple times. There are buildings that will just either can't get it or don't have the capital to invest, or will make bad informed decisions on how to invest it. And result is there going to be winners and losers in the marketplace. Effectively, the marketplace is going to get smaller of quality, qualified, attractive office buildings for the tenant base. So you have a tenant base that wants to grow, adding headcount, et cetera, but you actually have a dysfunction starting to occur among a portion of the inventory in the marketplace. So those that do it right are going to actually have increased demand. As a result, the rents will go up as well because of that. So
That's a great segue to my next question for you, Beth, which is, as more tech flocks to Bellevue's downtown, what kinds of industries and companies has it displaced, or will it continue to displace?
It's a tough question, but I would say that we're not seeing a displacement necessarily of any specific industry. I mean, if anything, professional services is changing the way that they're using space. And I think that change in use is allowing different types of businesses to make a decision about where they're occupying space. So, but necessarily an entire, sector isn't being displaced. But what you are seeing, and this is a Bellevue-based conversation, but what you are seeing is neighborhoods evolving. Spring District's a great example where, what did that look like 25 years ago, and what does it look like today? What does Belred look like today? So, there's certainly a lot of businesses. If you were in those neighborhoods and if you've been a part of this community for a really long time, you might see that as displaced, and a complete upzoning and reutilization of close-in land is changing the way that we're using the close-in land. But, that is just creating opportunity after opportunity for communities outside of our core to continue to develop and have capital invested in them, which improves resources and amenities and infrastructure for a lot of other neighboring communities. So I wouldn't say there's any specific sector that we're seeing being displaced. You definitely see, though, the 5 core tech employers who have landed on the east side as a huge draw for each other, for competing for that talented workforce, but also for all the businesses that support those.
Great. We've got Cody back with us. Looks like we lost
Sorry
you.
about that. I was frozen for a minute, apparently.
The question to you, Cody, what kinds of new technology are tenants expecting to have in their new offices?
Well, this is really interesting because I still think this is evolving and it's going to continue to evolve. And what we see right now is definitely not the finished product. But one of the things that we've seen here in our shop is, people want more flexible access. They want easier access to commercial real estate. And so we've launched a couple things. I mentioned earlier, a digitization of our product and our on-demand, which is essentially a pay-per-use, and our monthly subscription, which is all access. It's all bookable via an app. So whereas, you can go to a hotel and book a big conference room for your conference, or you can download our app, and literally within a couple clicks, you have access to, well-functioning, purpose-built spaces at the push of a button. I think that's been important. I think that also the utilization rates, one of the things that we're really big on is capturing data and helping it tell a story. And so for us, the ability to capture data at scale and really understand, okay, this is the employee base that's coming into the office most frequently. What role do they serve? Okay, these are product people. This is the dev team. This is, why is this team utilizing so heavily? So we have the ability to capture that data, and I think that that's going to be a really important thing for operators to be able to harness. The other piece that I selfishly hope gets rolled out is I'd love to see the parking technology and how we work with our parking operators in our garages. I'd love to see that technology kind of come to fruition, where we have, your company might have 200 spots and 500 employees. And, right now it's really tough to monitor how many people, of those 200 are in the office each day. I'd love to see one day a world where those systems can communicate with each other. And that would definitely make our lives as operators a lot easier, because we spend a lot of our time metering things like that.
Yeah, great point.
We just rolled out a couple of things, Tim. We just actually completely eliminated all the desk phones. We figured out actually everybody was either using their cell phones or they were using the Teams technologies. And so we, as a company, just rolled out across the US a smartphone technology that allows us to use to completely get rid of the telephone at the desk and go completely online and remote. And that way, no matter where you are, you can get your calls, you can make your calls, and you're no longer tied to an assigned spot to have a phone number. And it was really seamless and very easy to do. And like most companies, we're migrating from whatever conference room technology that we had to Teams technology, which is going to be crucial for all businesses to have access to in either building conference rooms as a common amenity, or in your individual conference rooms, or in your WeWork conference rooms. But to be able to do a Teams call, there's never going to be a day that we don't have the ability now to say to the two people who can't make it to a conference, no problem, we'll just dial you in, and it's the new expectation that we all have, as opposed to something that was a luxury before.
Yeah.
Cody could probably talk to this more than anybody, but the evolution of the conference room, and particularly the integration of AV into the conference room that Beth was alluding to, it putting a screen at one end of a long room and saying that you as a remote participant are welcome to the meeting just doesn't feels like you're a stepsister, right? A stepchild. And so there's so much evolution going on right now in how, as you know, Tim, you build these every day, how these new conferencing facilities are attempting to integrate remote, and on-site people so that there's an equality to how they participate in the meeting. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely is.
One of the things that Bill just said that I just want to hammer home, we've heard from so many of our members about equality of the workplace and equal access. So, not everybody has a really robust home office with the sit-stand desk and the dual monitors and all that, and all of the conferencing capabilities that you might have in the office. And I think that the equality of workplace is going to be a really key theme in the future of work. And we hear that over and over and over from our members broadly.
Mm-hmm. I want to pivot a little bit, and I'll direct this one to you, Bill. We talked about the rising lease rates. How do important amenities like restaurants, grocery stores, and street level retail afford these spaces? And are developers and property owners providing incentives for these kinds of spaces?
Yeah, I mean, the light bulb went on for all of us. This was maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago, when you realized that your ground floor was essentially dictating the success of your 40 floors above it. If you could make your ground floor activated and engaging and enticing and all those things that people wanted, and there was a sense of all, collaboration and interaction and all those kinds of things, people wanted to be in your building. And that's how they judged your building. They judged it by the ground floor and what that environment was like. So today, there's not a landlord out there that won't lose money on their ground floor and happily lose money on their ground floor in order to bring the best of class retail groups into the ground floor. They curate it very carefully. It's has nothing to do typically with credit of those tenants. It's all about the organic nature of them, the appeal they have to as Cody was alluding to, knowing your workforce. And if you understand the people that are going to populate upstairs, as a result, you can typically triangulate what they would want downstairs. And then you go out and you get it and you pay for it. And so I actually think retailers are in a very strong position. Good retailers are in a very strong position to go into best of class buildings. And it's a win-win for everyone, the owner, the tenants upstairs, and the retailers down on the first floor.
Great. Beth, how much land is left to be developed for the type of dense multifamily office construction that we've seen of late in Bellevue?
Well, there's enough but we can't get it delivered fast enough is one of the biggest challenges that we've got right now. We've got a really great city. We've got a really good business community. We have really great municipalities that are servicing us really, really well. So it's a very desirable place to be. We've got a 10.5 million square foot CBD here in Bellevue. We've got about 4.5-5 million square feet getting ready to be delivered. That's all spoken for. And we've got another almost 10 million square feet in our pipeline with another, almost a dozen office assets that are getting delivered in the near term. And the biggest challenge that we've got is getting these developments built and getting them delivered so that we can use them. And that's what's causing this compression on space. That being said, we've got, I think the number is 30 full floors on this side of the market right now. We've still got 30 full floors. I'm sure somebody would argue that some of that's spoken for, and there's a lot of paper being traded behind the scenes. But if you look at the third quarter reports for Colliers, that's what we're tracking right now. That's a lot of 20,000 square foot or 15,000 square foot floors that are still available. There's 4.5 million square feet, though, of users that are trying to get their hands on that space. That's putting the pressure on those spaces. So we're expecting, we had almost 500,000 square feet absorbed this quarter. We're expecting no end in sight for that. And the opportunities to, continue to upzone nearby areas it's all a matter of how quickly we can get our hands on those opportunities and get them turned over. But I think Bellevue's sitting really, really good. The business community and the municipalities are working really well together. So if we can keep doing it, we'll be in good shape.
Excellent. Great problems to have.
The upzone that City of Bellevue's done, the three big ones, Bell Red Road, CBD, 112th corridor along the freeway, and maybe out what they did in Eastgate. I mean, that's set the city up for over a decade of plenty of supply to meet the growth demand that Beth was alluding to. So
great. Well, I want to thank our panelists for a great discussion today. It was very informative. And I think we are at time where we can return to the main stage to hear our keynote speaker, Jill Quinlan. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.